NVIDIA's sponsoring it. So it's a
Ooh,
big deal. There's going to
yeah.
be a lot of eyeballs on it. We're expecting over 200 devs.
Welcome, affiliate listeners, to another episode of the Affiliate Podcast. And today, guys, you want to strap in and really pay attention for all those that have ever found themselves scared of the words tech. They know that tech is important in their business. They think, oh my God, I hope no one asks me to do it. It's like walking to your accountant's office and hoping they don't ask you anything about accounting. If you've been that person, today we're going to provide clarity. We're going to provide answers. Most importantly, the answer to how to get some of the best dev talent without having to, necessarily go and the standard routes of paying for that talent. And how do you kind of hack, we'll say, to allude to what we'll describe earlier, the systems to get you high quality dev talent without the barriers that currently stand in your way of getting it. So really, really excited to talk to this guy. We're going to learn about his journey. He's also just a super smart, young, bright person that is going to be a super smart game changer in the world into the future. So really excited to have him on today. And with that, let me introduce Jordaaan Hill. Jordan, how are you doing? See, I said it right, and then I confused myself and decided to screw it up. But Jordaaan, how's it going, man?
Pretty good, man. Thank you for having me. It's been the fight my entire life is getting the name right. But yeah, Jordaaan Hill. I put 3 A's on it nowadays for branding purposes, so that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to be here and be chatting with you guys about how we approach hiring dev talent and helping people with AI, especially.
Yeah. I mean, it's so exciting because I think there's a lot of people that, again, everyone knows they need to be in AI. They've definitely probably bought some tools, but I think a lot of people are similar to what they experience in technology. Know they're not getting what they should, but they don't know how to get what they should. And they're kind of blocked in there. So that's going to be a theme for what we talk about a lot today. Because I think there's a lot of businesses that get stuck there in a lot of ways, and you're kind of the unsticker. But before we jump into that, what I'd love to do is let's take a moment and let's talk about you for a bit, Jordan. Let's really talk about Jordaaan and dialing back. Like, how did you get to this stage today? Like, walk me through, not exactly what brought you to the podcast, but what brought you to this business and to this tech world? Because I don't think it was the normal happenings for most people.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't. So it kind of started, piqued my curiosity around last year. There's this a big summit, a big shout out to Chris Mercer, Analytics Mania, Julian, those guys. They have a summit called Measure Summit, and they had me speak about Google APIs. And so, first of all, they had me speak. I chose Google APIs, went down a rabbit hole, understanding that I could set up all my data collection stuff. If you're familiar with Google Tag Manager, Google Analytics, that type of thing, I found out that I could do it semi-programmatically at the time, right? And so that got my curiosity. Next thing you know, Cursor's coming out. And for me, it was Bolt before Lovable. Started attending Tech Week here in Austin, et cetera, et cetera. And it just kind of started snowballing. I want to say that Measure Summit was in September, and the Meta Hackathon, the first hackathon I ever went to, was in November, along with Tech Week. So it's just been a curiosity, one thing leading to the next. Hosting hackathons. I, in June, did a hackathon just for vibe coders. And so it was Texas's first, and we had a great turnout, a great time. I held several workshops, kind of, stepping people through planning, tool use, agent building, deployment, the whole 9 yards. And it was a great time, man. It's just been learning on top of learning.
That's amazing, man. And I can't wait to talk about the hackathons because obviously that's going to be a big center of this conversation. And for those that don't know what this is, strap in because it's pretty freaking cool. And especially when we talk about how you could access and take advantage of these hackathons that you're putting on. But before that, I actually want to go a little further. So you mentioned Chris Mercer, they put on that event. Chris is obviously such a brilliant guy when it comes to data. Walk me through how you got connected with him. How did you find yourself in this kind of tech entrepreneur world and even deciding to be curious about a Google API? Because most people walking around don't even know the words Google and API could be next to each other if it isn't just a missed way to type ABC. You know what I mean? So, walk me through that.
Yeah, for sure. So I came to Austin About a decade ago. Was trading at the time. I was in finance, and I was at the Frost Tower doing just a trading career there. And as I got deeper into it, I started to meet all these guys who were wearing board shorts and flip flops and just having the time of their lives, working where they wanted to. Obviously, entrepreneurship looks really pretty from the outside looking in
Yeah.
at first.
Yeah, especially when you're in investment banking and trading and stuff. You're
Yeah.
like, I'm up way too early in a suit working
Mhm.
way too hard, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So there was a little bit of a lure there. I ended up getting connected to, big shout out to DG, Internet Marketing Party.
Hmm.
Went to several of those and ended up going to one where Chris was actually speaking. So
Nice.
Mercer gave a speech about how to use data inside of these businesses, and that just kind of, that's how my brain is wired anyways.
Hmm.
So once I realized that I could kind of use existing skills inside of this internet marketing world, I got deep into data collection, landed a big contract with JustWorks, built their system from pretty much scratch at the time, probably about 4 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago. Um, it was great. It was just lots of curiosity, lots of learning, understanding how that world works. And what I skipped over before that, I did a lot of affiliate related work in mass page sites with SEO, game in the
Hmm.
system. I
Yeah.
think 2014, 2013 ish. Yeah. So it's a great time, man. And it's even better whenever you can kind of tell where your conversions are coming from. So I
Hmm.
got obsessed with conversion tracking and data collection.
Well, so I'm curious about that because especially as somebody that came from the finance world before I went into performance marketing, I was like, "Whoa, this is similar but different, right?"
Yeah.
So walk me through kind of what was the fascination with data when it came to trading. Like when you were in trading, like what it seems like data became obviously data is a huge part of trading in general, but for you that
Yeah.
sounds like that maybe became your unique advantage or something you leaned into. So walk me through a little bit when you were dealing with the data sets in the finance world. Like, how did it speak to you? What about those data sets do you remember just finding that felt maybe natural or easy? Because a lot of people find that the
I,
hardest part of finance is the data side.
right. Well, I kind of learned. So I'm from Oklahoma. I learned everything I knew about trading through books, started my own investment club. I was calling up a broker and selling like mini wheat
Oh,
contracts
nice. You're right in the
in college.
commodities. That's awesome, dude.
Like, yeah, straight into commodities. Everybody I ever looked up to was a commodities trader early on. And then I got into Forex, lots of technical analysis, read several books on that, and was just obsessed. So by time back in the day, it was Ninja Trader, and then it turns into like Trading View and stuff like that. By the time all those things started coming out, I was already fully obsessed with technical analysis and trying to use data in order to make decisions
Hmm.
and trading an edge. So being super disciplined about it and letting the probabilities play out.
Hmm.
So that's kind of like the beginning of that obsession, and then the pattern recognition started to play into how I approached trading professionally at some point once I was in Austin.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I imagine so. One of the things that's interesting, not only do you understand and you know you need to crave the data, but you understand how to structure data so it's easily
Mhm.
accessible, right? Because I think one thing is data with analytics allows decisions, right? But data
Right.
getting to the point where you could get fast analytics is one of the biggest challenges that exist in all markets. So maybe walk me through, not necessarily in the trading sense, unless that makes sense for you, but even we go back to kind of the doing like fan pages and large pages SEO, which to be fair, by the time you were doing that was so hard for so many people because to get a distinct advantage in that market when people with much bigger wallets and pocketbooks and bigger sets of data is who you're competing against. Similar in trading, right? The
Right.
biggest institutional
Right.
investors have all the advantages. So kind of walk me through like how you're able to create these just in your head, some examples of how you're able to create such efficient analytics to get those competitive advantages.
Yeah. Well, so going back to the mass page example, for me, it was more so about doing the research up front, and having a niche. So similar to trading, uh, you're not going to beat the entire market segment, but you can find a little corner to consistently win and have an advantage over time, right? So for me, that was meditation. And I wrote quite a bit about meditation, found out that there was a podcast with a very popular podcaster at that time. Um, I can't remember his full name. His first name was Elvis,
Mm-hmm.
but he had mentioned something about meditation. And I used those keywords surrounding his podcast name and his talk and meditation as long tail keywords, and ended up getting several sales just through building mass page through that. So
Smart.
that's kind of like an example of, okay, if I know that someone's already going to be driving traffic because of their name, on top of the niche, on top of, so it's like current events plus niche, um, and then tons and tons of volume.
Yeah.
So I was able to do it that way, right? Um, and then when it comes to like data collection on a marketing side, I think the obsession for me became, if I'm able to take collected data alongside server side events and capture, and then connect that to a CRM, it provides like the best advantage. So really my obsession lied in server sent events and server side events in
Yeah.
general. So
Which I
setting
could
that up,
theorize why that would be so beneficial, but from your perspective, why is the obsession
sure.
and the benefit when you could integrate that server side, that server level data, and just coming in automatically into a CRM or someplace to analyze and extract?
Yeah, for me, it's trying to go around the blockers
Mm-hmm.
instead of saying, "Hey, this isn't going to work." So client side with a pixel, um, we all saw how Facebook Cappy just kind of took off, and we started to see how Google Ads for most people was super confusing. And by the time TikTok came out, if you weren't setting up server side to use TikTok properly, you're kind of you're at a disadvantage. But also the people who are already making money and already had traction, they had the advantage of a pixel full of data.
Mm-hmm.
um, so I started to kind of understand where the disconnect was happening, and it was happening mostly with people who were starting out. You don't have a, a crystal ball
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
when you're going to start or how data collection is going to work into the future. So just by virtue of starting early and populating your pixel, you're leaps and bounds ahead of someone who
Yeah.
might be starting
It's a
at a
bit of a
different time,
barrier to
right?
entry almost at that point that
Very much
locks
so.
you in. Yeah.
Very much so. So I think data, and I'm all about unseen advantages because it's hard to block what you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
And I think data is one of those things. And, AI is kind of the new engine that data fuels, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, expand on that a little bit more, because I think we could transition this into how to make this happen in your life. And really, this comes down to what we initially talked about. Dev is probably something you're going to need, and how do you make sure you get good dev? But talk me through a little bit through about what you see, particularly with the connection to data and AI, and how these things pair together into something that's pretty supercharged that we should all be paying attention to. I mean, it should be with
Definitely.
all things, but marketing data specifically, I'd imagine.
Yeah. It's I had a talk recently at a mastermind, and the main thing that I took from that was, if you don't have data, you don't have a project. Essentially, you need the data to fuel the AI. Otherwise, you just get the standard settings and you get the standard results right out of the box like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have the same results as everybody else, guess what? You have no advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And so the game is those companies that have been diligent of collecting data and storing their data for all these years, even if they haven't been using it, they are at a massive advantage versus people who just have not been collecting data, or have an attitude of, well, I don't really know what to do with this data, so why would I collect it anyways?
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things where now's the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? If we look at the markets right now, gold and silver are at all-time highs.
Mm-hmm.
So that same mentality is like, why would you buy this? There's like this old school mentality around buying physical gold and silver over the years, and now they're starting to see why. So
Yeah.
it's you reap what you sow, and when it comes to data, especially when you're working in a sector that has a lot of private data. So think lawyers, think healthcare, think financial companies. All those situations, you would benefit through having the right data and then running a local solution so that so you're still in compliance.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about sending it to somebody's cloud, OpenAI's, Google's, DeepSeek's, whatever. You can keep it all on machine and you can
Mhm.
keep it all local.
You could increase that security and increase the utilization of the data so much more now is what you're saying essentially. Like even the smallest person with what they think is small data is very, very valuable because it's direct and private and owned data is essentially what you're saying, right?
1000%.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the only difference maker pretty soon here. We see all these models are coming out, and the ability to build things like OpenAI's Agent Kit.
Mm-hmm.
They have apps inside of ChatGPT now, desktop version. This is stuff that Claude's been doing, by the way. Anthropic is kind of ahead of the curve on features. But the point of it is, since the most popular model, which is OpenAI, since the most popular company dealing with AI is offering this now, that means that the advantage and the difference between you and them, someone who's just using that tool, is going to be what? How good I am at the tool?
Yeah.
Yes, but also data.
Yeah,
The
because
difference is going to be the
how
data.
good you are at the tool is kind of chasing a fleeting game, right? Like there's always
Hmm.
somebody coming in, and then essentially you're in the process that I'm just 1 week, 1 month ahead of somebody. That's not the best place
Exactly.
to be in. That's fine when you're at the beginning of the race. It's less fine when you're at the end with everyone else sprinting right along with you. So, no, I really like that because the data differentiates and the data you own, you can control. As we continue to look at the way technology is going, it seems that there's just going to be more and more focus on codifying, protecting, licensing first party data. What I do
Yes.
and what I do with another business, everyone will know. But then instead of it having these aggregators that control all this data, we'll all be able to control it so much better. At least that's what I hear you saying, and that's what I see as well. And I think that's really, really interesting. I mean, we're not going to talk about Web3 and how it supercharges all that stuff. But I think for a lot of people to go, oh, okay, so I need this. I know I'm getting access to data because anyone transacting online actually has tons of data that they might not be
Right.
doing anything with. So what we kind of come down to, I think a lot of people, they know that they have the data, they know the AI could do it, but they also know they need some dev work to get there. I've never found anybody that to have a
Right.
custom data solution, you need to have custom dev. And the issue is
Yeah.
they tend to go out to try and find their devs from places like Fiverr and just freelance people from who the heck knows where, and they get who the heck knows where kind of results in terms of what comes next. So
Yes.
I think one of the big things is first kind of walk me through a little bit about, let's talk about now, okay, we know there's this need for technology. You see it and you've been able to build it for companies and for yourself without even having a
Hmm.
dev background, which I think is really impressive, but
Right.
most people don't have access to that. So walk me through as you've now been able to experience and work with some of the top devs, done it yourself, and also probably seen the effects of a less skilled freelancer. What is the real difference between the best of the best and when you're getting kind of, we say, cheaper devs with oftentimes cheap results?
Yeah. So, in my opinion, it's really boils down to the ability for them to explain and show you what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what the roadmap might look like. So, a lot of times when someone says, "Hey, I have this project in mind," you would need to roadmap that. You want to figure out which features are absolute, like first features. This is what we want to ship with for an MVP.
Yeah.
And then you want to go further, or at least have the ability to go further. What if we added on additional features? What does that look like? Does it break the entire thing, etc.? And I really use myself as an example there. Obviously, Upwork and Fiverr, you don't really know what you're getting, and you're usually hiring offshore because of price. But reeling that back even further, I myself was hired as an AI engineer with only 5 months of experience. And I was hired for a role that required 5 to 10 years of experience. And it was all because I learned how to use these tools really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
But what I didn't know was some of the finer points of DevOps, some of the issues that can happen whenever you're pushing to production. It's one thing to have a tool built on your machine, and it's another to be able to actually push it so that people can use it. And I had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah.
So, and I'm really open and honest about that because it's beautiful being around ex Meta, ex Disney Plus, ex Google, these people who have actually went and done the hard thing, senior
Mm-hmm.
engineers who are kind of taking me under their wing because I work at Antler VC downtown. So I have a desk there. I'm one of the only non-startup founders that's officing out of there. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm building community, and I've been able to do quite a few things for how little experience I have
Mm-hmm.
in a formal dev position.
Yeah.
And so I kind of represent vibe coding, if
Mm-hmm.
you will, right?
Yeah. But I think
So
you said something I think is really, really substantial in there.
sure,
Is you mentioned before is like, hey, I had all this experience. You probably represented like the best case scenario of somebody you might have been able to find on Fiverr, right? Short on experience, but high on skill. Yet there's a whole breadth of things that even you, as the top 1% fractional percent of what you hope to find, knows in these dev spaces, right? You've been able to have the opportunity
right.
because of your skill, your opportunity, the things you've done outside of it to build community, to learn and develop that. But ultimately, one of the biggest gaps is all the stuff that they don't know how to do that are critical to when things go wrong, or structuring, it sounds like, the data
Yes,
the right way, structuring the system the right way for usability, or so on and so forth. Or, hey, eventually you're going to need to maintain this stuff. And if you don't do this right,
yes,
you're going to have a massive issue later, which slows progress, slows so many things up. So really, it kind of makes me think of like, I don't know if you're a big football fan, Jordaaan, but they had the Cleveland Browns recently traded for Joe Flacco or Cincinnati Bengals, sorry, traded for Joe Flacco from the Browns because they have like no quarterback anymore. And it's like, why would you get this old washed up guy? All I could think of is you need somebody that's seen enough of football to not make dumb football mistakes. They might physically still be
there you
too
go.
slow. They might be brittle. They might not have the physical tools anymore, but that's not what you're hiring them for. You could probably
Right.
figure that out, but you need all the other stuff. I've seen a lot, so I know a lot, the wisdom that goes along with that. And it sounds like when you're getting
Yeah.
upper, I guess, not division, but upper skilled dev people with that background, that's really what you're investing in, is all the questions you don't even know to ask and things that you can never
100%.
know would even be an issue. Is that about right?
100%, man. You hit the nail on the head. Seriously, it's I've heard AI tools by really smart people referred to as junior dev level tools. So you can basically complete any task that a junior dev would be able to do. However, the pilot of that jet, if you will, you still have to be a good pilot. If you're
Mm-hmm.
a bad pilot in the best aircraft possible, you still may crash and burn.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea here is, how do I get somebody into that seat to build a project that has seen things, that's been around the block, who understands what needs to happen to push a real project forward? How do I get someone like that at a fraction of the cost?
That
And
is
on
such a
top of
perfect
that,
transition. Yeah, yes. And on top of that, yes, on even more. I mean, that right there, I'm like, that's the biggest problem anyway. But yes, on top of that, what else?
they understand when and where to use the AI tools. So these AI tools, as you've seen, everybody's seen that they've just gotten better and better. If we're just looking at benchmarks and tests for like scientific tests, if you will. But in the field, when you're using the tools, they still have certain limitations. So you need someone who understands what that difference is, and they can jump in and write the code to fix the bug if need be.
Mm-hmm.
And they can look at the code and say, oh, this is AI slop that was created. That is not at all what I thought they were going to create, right?
Mm.
But
But you have to almost know the
it's
code well enough to even know that that's the problem it's making, right?
exactly. Exactly. So
So,
that's what I've been obsessed over
mhm.
for the past 6 months. The first 6 months was, wow, I can do dev work now. And then I realized where I was in the hierarchy of how skilled you can be as a dev once I
Mhm.
met the real deal.
Yeah, yeah,
And then I said, okay, how do I make sure that those levels are represented and I'm able to connect business owners with those same people so that they can actually push things across the finish line?
yeah.
MIT came out with a survey that said only 5% of the projects that are being done and created in these corporate situations, only 5% are actually seeing the light of day.
Really?
That
So they have
means
a bunch of stuff that just
95% of them are dying.
yeah, it just sits there and goes nowhere, and they don't do anything
Yep,
with it. Which has to, I imagine, for
exactly.
devs feel so frustrating, right? They don't want to build something that doesn't get used. I'd imagine would be
Right.
a big piece of it. So you probably get a lot of them feeling pretty unfulfilled at times, just wanting to do something that gets done. So, well, let's talk about that then. So I get it. Like, in my best case scenario, I'm going to get junior dev level skills, most likely. Which, if you have an audacious project, becomes very, very frustrating. I want good data built into my business. I want something. I want some agent. I want some software, which one we know increases the ability for your company to be a lot more acquirable, right? If you build good
Right.
in-house tech, even if you're the only one using it, they might realize that, man, we want this, and they'll buy your company just for the tech you build internally, right? Everything else is just
100%.
gravy. So it really changes a lot about your business just by having good tech. So we can't maybe get this through our freelance stuff. We need to get somebody advanced, but holy shit, that sounds expensive and something that I am not capable of doing. But you just mentioned that, okay, you can find them. How? So why don't we go through and talk a little bit about the how of where you even would find somebody to do a project for you that has high level tech experience. I probably, unless I maybe move to San Jose, I don't know, like what would be the best place to do that?
Right. Yeah, it's kind of it's difficult, right? I find myself in this great position to where I met with a lot of devs, and I've seen their work. I know people who can vouch for them. I can take a look at what they've got going on and what their past has been.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times these guys are the same ones that get the $400,000-$500,000 job, right? Because they've worked in big tech, and that demands a certain salary.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I have learned in just my own journey and hosting hackathons and attending hackathons, even winning one, is that using a hackathon as a starting point. So, learning how to present an issue, having several people work on it to solve it, and then having the business owner themselves say, wow, this is awesome. I have 20 solutions to choose from. Let me choose one that I think is the best, and then we iterate from there. So it makes it so that we do two things. We crunch down the time required to actually get an MVP out the door, or at least a working prototype of sorts. And we also minimize the upfront investment. Most business owners that I deal with and work with are SMBs,
Mm-hmm.
and they're likely not going to spend $400,000 to hire one person that they don't really know how to instruct,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just, okay, hey, I spent all this money. Now, how do I even tell them what I want, right? And get them to do that.
right,
So, and I like this too, because that with this route, the only way I saw something similar to this was actually copywriting. They used to do this with, they'd say, hey, I'm going to pay a bunch of copywriters $1,000, 10 copywriters $1,000 for them to go and give you something and give their best version, because ultimately they want to
right,
win, right? The win almost matters more than the original contract or whatever. You just want to say, hey, I beat all these other people in doing it, I got to complete it. And then at the end of the day, you just get to find the best people you want to work with, or the best people that actually
right,
did the job the best. So you could learn a lot from there. And if you decide you want to make that $400,000 investment. Now you're doing it with a lot more education on what you could get on the other side. And even, or might not even have to, because they might have just built what you needed and you're like, holy shit, I don't need any of this anymore. Even better. So
Exactly.
one question I have
Yeah.
before you go into kind of how you get started in this, maybe how the hackathon works a little bit, like how you present a project, so on and so forth, with a bounty. But let me ask this, like, what's the motivation for, I'm in Austin, I'm, working for some big tech company. Why would I want to go and do this? What's my reason? I'm assuming they're on like the 996 schedule or something like that, and they don't have any
Yeah.
time. What's that motivation for these guys or gals?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So people love to be known, especially in a community of their peers, as one of the best or the best. And a hackathon is a way to prove that. Everybody's starting on even playing field, and you have the same time constraint and access to the same tools. A lot of times, these hackathons have a very specific sponsor or a tool theme for that particular hack, and then they, have that time to iterate and figure out, hey, what am I going to show the world that I can create in this limited amount of time where everybody's on an even playing field. So it boils down to bragging rights a lot of times. And oftentimes, there's also, cash bounty and access to tools sometimes. And a lot of times these large tech companies are sponsoring them. There's one coming up, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But some of the biggest names in tech get to acknowledge and see that you exist. And that's
Super
everything
valuable.
to
Yeah.
most people.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So I just love that, because creating and tapping into the environment you probably didn't a lot of us didn't even know existed is not only a huge
Right.
benefit, but it's a huge benefit because it creates something that you could never create for them, which is kind of a little bit of I guess I'm trying to why is the word escaping now? Um, it's a little bit of a show, right? You get to tap into a show that
Yes.
has something with pride and credibility and an audience that otherwise you wouldn't really have access to. In a way, it's like the equivalent of what you get from like the Shark Tank bump. Just the awareness of
Yeah,
people seeing you
exactly.
all of a sudden gives you that you could not get a deal and still get a lot of business just by being on that show. And this is one of those situations where you could just be seen and do something impressive, and the people that participate get a lot of advantage. I think that's fantastic. And boy, what a
I-
great job interview, man. If you want to get one of these people or bring them into your
yeah.
business, like you're coming in a pretty exciting way. Now, walk me through a little bit how this works for a business owner, because what pops in my head is kind of like the social network, and when they're doing, I think it was a hackathon or something. But Mark Zuckerberg has like devs that he's working on. They're typing on computers furiously with a crowd around them, so it looks like Fight Club for nerds. But like,
Yeah.
walk me through like what does the hackathon kind of look like, and how do these companies like what are they doing when they're pitching their bounties or their projects? What does that look like?
Yeah. So typically, what I do is I'll interview the business owner, just simple intake form. Hey, what are you trying to solve? Will this save time or money or both? Is this an internal tool? Meaning, a lot of times that means that the UI UX doesn't need to be cleaned up to be outward facing
Mm-hmm.
or external. When I think internal tools, it's my personal favorite way to start building first.
Mm-hmm.
You think of Claude Code, we think of AWS, and we think of Slack. Those
Mm-hmm.
all started as internal tools first.
Yeah.
And so an internal tool can become an external tool over time. And so we love to push that first, because 9 times out of 10, what you're trying to do is get it to do or perform a task or perform a function.
Mm-hmm.
If we're able to complete that piece, the UI UX piece is usually a lot easier to come by,
Yeah.
and we can get a designer involved at that point. Um, Long story short, though, we bring them in, define the problem, understand what's happening, understand access to data. This is where the rubber really meets the road. Hey, you want to complete a certain task. Do you have data that will be able to support whatever task that you're trying to complete? That could be, hey, if we had this automation, it would save us, 20, 30% of work, which means in hourly wages is, $20,000, $30,000 a year,
Yeah.
whatever. Right. So you come up with that. We find that out together so that we can really put a true price tag on accomplishing the goal. And we try to push forward from there with not only a roadmap for the hackathon itself, but then have like nice to have features and hey, this is the North Star of where we're wanting to go in the
Mm-hmm.
future as well.
Almost like
So,
scoring criteria, right? Like here's the bare minimum,
yes.
but if you want to get the A plus gold star, here's the other nice to haves. And then of course, if you go above and beyond that, you're definitely winning the contract, sort of thing. So that's really
Yep.
cool. So basically, just to summarize that they'd come up with you, and I understand there's kind of like a pay to play to get into the hackathon, and then from there,
For sure.
it's setting what that bounty needs to be. And so I'll have you describe that a little bit more, exactly how that works. But just what I'm understanding, they get to sit down with you, clearly define the problem, the project that needs to happen, what they want out of it. So it's not like, hey, you just asked us to build an entire CRM in 10 minutes. That's probably not going to work, right? Like, making sure the ask is reasonable, and
Yes.
is something that can be accomplished. I mean, that alone feels like such a valuable thing, because even if you don't get the project made, you just went through the exercise of defining what you actually need, which a lot of
Bingo.
people don't really honestly understand all the time, right? Like I know I'm one of the worst at being like, okay, I want this done. Go do that. And they're like, well, what about this? I'm like, just this thing. Can it do this? Right. And so I think going through that exercise, somebody that understands, no, I have to ask you a lot of questions, could be immensely
Right.
valuable. So let's go into the ideas. So we have kind of the entry fee, and then let's give me like an example of a bounty that's set. We don't need to go through the process. You would do that. That could be very comprehensive. And I like that it's like,
Right.
hey, if you have this, here's the calculation of the benefit to you in the next 6 months or
Yep.
3 months, whatever it might be. I think that's awesome. But let's say we've done that. So we have the number.
Okay.
You could tell me what the number is. Walk me through what this bounty looks like, how it's paid, and kind of what the deliverables and everything, kind of just how it flows in the hackathon model.
Yeah, for sure. So there's obviously limited availability for any hackathon. If there's 50 different projects for the devs to work on, then a lot of them will not receive work, obviously, during that hackathon. So due to that supply and demand, there is a cost associated with just getting a spot on the hackathon as a track. So we have several different tracks. So think of tracks like how college has different degrees that you can go after. So if you have hackathon is the college itself, and then a track would be a CRM track, and there's also an AI agent track, and then there's also a let's say analytics dashboard track. So those
Gotcha.
are three different tracks within the hackathon itself.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of those would pay in order to have that spot occupied. On
Gotcha.
top of that, you use a bounty to entice the developer to solve your problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that is more of amongst those different tracks, a competition amongst them. So you
Mm-hmm.
can choose, most of the time it's between $2,500 and $10,000. And it just depends on the business owner and how much attention they're hoping to get. If I'm solving a problem that's only worth $20,000, $30,000, then maybe I have a bounty that would be closer to five to $7,500, right?
Mm-hmm.
5,000 to $7,500, and then I still end up winning in the long run because I pay that once, but I save that money from now until
As long as it
onwards,
keeps working, right? Yeah.
as long as it keeps working. And the whole point of doing this with good devs is you're going to receive something that actually works and can be maintained, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And again, you
Yeah.
get a new connection too with that dev too, and whatever that might
Yes.
be. So,
And even more so, Kyle, the thing that's really cool about it is you do have access to the winner that you choose. But remember, if things don't work out with you and that winner, there's other people who also submitted
mm-hmm.
on your project. So you can tag them in and say, hey, I actually need to use the second place person or the third
Mm-hmm.
place person in order to continue maintaining this project or to push it further, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something you just do not have access to if you hire somebody full time.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I think it's one of those things, like, I just love it because the benefits are abound, right? I think the only downside to this could be essentially you attend and no one solves your issue, right? Which means you probably
Right.
need to pay more or figure out your issue better. So you still learn. You spend money to learn no matter what. And then the only other thing I think of is if maybe you can't procure the winner or any of the people for it. I guess that's a risk, but I would say that's a pretty good risk to have, to go into. I would take those chances of, too many people say no to you, right? Like, I think that's unlikely. So that's
Yeah.
amazing, man. So, and honestly, this feels like such a win-win, and more one of these things that people didn't know that they could participate in. And as they know,
Right.
hopefully your creativity is sparking. You're thinking, holy cow, what is the one issue that I could have solved for me right now that would change my business for an in-house tool? And you can even have dev teams that you don't want to distract them from or whatever it might be. This feels like just a perfect thing for people to go out and answer. So we mentioned before there's one coming up. So you have a hackathon coming up right now within the
Hmm.
next certain amount of time. I already forgot. I want to steal your thunder. So why don't you tell people
No, you're
about
good.
what's coming up, and then we could tell them how they could get in touch with you or get in touch with us, so we can make sure to get them to participate and hopefully bring some people out and take advantage of this awesome thing. I know I'm going to be talking with the team, our dev team and CFO or CTO directly about what projects do we
Nice.
have that are sitting around too much, because I think one of the big things here is like, what a perfect way to just clear out your roadmap a little bit with some stuff that you're like, oh, we
Yes.
really wanted to get this done. We're probably not going to be able to this year until now. So that's one thing I'm really thinking about. But yeah, tell me about when it's coming up and how people get to could participate.
Yeah, definitely. So Austin Tech Week is coming up at the end of the month, 24th through the 26th. And that's also when the hackathon is going to be taking place.
Awesome.
So it's going to be all week, Austin Tech Week, and then 24th through 26th is the actual hackathon,
Yeah,
rather. And
that's
it's
awesome.
NVIDIA's sponsoring it. So it's a
Ooh,
big deal. There's going to
yeah.
be a lot of eyeballs on it. We're expecting over 200 devs. A lot of the hacks that I've been doing are right at 100 at most.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a bigger one. It's probably going to be really high level people. So one thing that you want to think about is, if I'm working in big tech, 9 times out of 10, the people that are willing to go to a hackathon aren't necessarily just senior level people. These are young, ambitious. Hey, I've already got big tech on my resume. Now I'm ready to maybe branch off and do a startup as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're in between startups, or they're going from startup to big tech. So a lot of the people who are the most scrappy and available for this type of work, they've been around the block one way or another, and they've already earned their skills and they're in build mode right now.
Yeah,
So
they're ready
that's the
for
beauty of
the
catching
dream
them.
opportunity that's going to translate them
Yes,
to a different level. I love that,
that
man.
too.
I love that. That's
So
fantastic. Yep, go ahead.
I've noticed that these people are looking for one of two things. They're either looking for big opportunity, and a lot of times they've already got money. So they're looking for a way to get the clout, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's a big opportunity because I got this name on my resume, or I've already got the cash from working at a big tech company, and now I just want the opportunity piece. So this is a way to bridge that gap. It's pretty cool.
And I would imagine with NVIDIA being there, if you have any projects in the
Yeah,
AI sphere, this would be the best place to go and get that done.
100%.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, fantastic. Well, we're gonna make sure we get this episode dropped next week, since the timing will be good for this. And I'll be letting people, like I said, internally, we're gonna talk to people, let some other people know that some of our bigger clients that would this be fantastic for. Definitely an opportunity you don't want to miss up. And of course, if people do miss this one, but they want to continue to participate in hackathons with you in the future, what's the best way for them to follow what you're doing, Jordaaan? And what's kind of the perfect place for them to get in contact with you, or at least in contact with what you're doing and what might be coming up next?
Yeah, definitely. LinkedIn. So reach me on LinkedIn, Jordaaan Hill. You can,
With three
we'll
A's on
have a
that
link
one
to
too
it
on
in the
LinkedIn as well. Yeah.
3 A's. Yeah. You'll see my photo. I have a hat on.
Yeah.
You'll notice me. Um, So yeah, connect on LinkedIn. I'll have links in the show notes for email and that type of thing as well.
Perfect.
But the big hackathon where you're going to get the most bang for your buck is the one at the end of this month. Really excited to show that to the viewers and have them have that be their first opportunity to build something awesome.
That's fantastic, man. I love it. I love it. All right. Big ideas abound, guys. You finally have your opportunity to go make it happen. Jordaaan, thanks so much for your time. This is fantastic, really insightful, really fun. And I think just, again, seeing the power of where technology is going. We know it's big, but kind of bringing in that old stuff that you think you don't have access to, but bringing in today really, really gets me excited, guys, because this is a way to level up your business. And Jordaaan really gave us that access and that opportunity today. So for that, I want to say thank you. Please rate, review, subscribe. If you want to come talk to me beforehand or Thomas beforehand, please reach out to affiliated@clickbank.com with those questions. We could floor them before we send it over to Jordaaan if you're just not sure, as well as send us the stuff you want to talk about. Or if you just would like to send new outfit ideas for Thomas, what flannel he should wear this year, those are also important questions that we constantly need to answer. Until next time, as Thomas would say, happy scaling. I'll say be safe out there. Jordaaan, you be safe out there and have a good one. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks.